We are live.
Thank you, Mrs. DeGraw. We want to welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to our board meeting and call it to order. And Mrs. Perkins will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we open for a motion to approve our agenda,
I'm trying to make a motion that we approve the agenda.
is there a second?
Sorry.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Before we open for a motion to approve our minutes from the previous meeting,
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes from the October 21 meeting.
And I'll second that, Madam Chair.
those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Williams, can you give us your report?
Yes, thank you. Oh my goodness, this one did not get loaded back.
If you reload that page, it should load it.
Let's do that.
Just, yeah.
There's the reload. There it is. Thank you, Mrs. DeGraw. All right, every month's so jam-packed full of fun things. Here are a few highlights that I have on the superintendent report. Obviously, I do not have everything in here, but recent one, the superintendent, I was able to attend the Idaho School District Council meeting. That was the Tuesday prior to the ISBA conference. And so it was interesting. It was they gave a history of the Idaho School District Council and how that relates to the insurances and insurance companies in Idaho. So it was really eye-opening for me. I'm happy that I get to sit on that board because it's allowing me to be able to learn a lot of different things that I bring back as that representative for the District 6 superintendent's meetings, and also things that will be beneficial for us in our district. I attended that on Tuesday and then moved on to the ISBA convention. I do have that here on the superintendent report, but we do have a part during our discussion item on the agenda that I think we'll save those conversations, and then that way the board will be able to share your feelings and things that stood out to you at the ISBA convention. But I do want to, before we get to that point, just let our patrons know how dedicated this school board is to receiving professional development and taking the time. This is a volunteer position for all these individuals, and it was really something that is a wonderful thing to see when you look at all the different volunteers throughout the state where these people sign up to a lot of times take heat and everything. I just wanted to publicly thank the Board of Trustees from West Jefferson for all of your time, and also your families for allowing your family members to be able to attend those conferences. An update with the trustee elections. Tanis, you retained yours. I forget an R on that. Is it one R? Is it? Okay. It was two. I just noticed that. It was zone 4 and then Nedra retained zone 5. So congratulations to you guys. Update with our transportation department. Our summer fuel has been all used up. I wish we could go back in time because that second bullet, we're keeping an eye on fuel prices. As we talked yesterday, it was almost sad to hear how the price was back in January. I think our summer fuel was $1.69, and our winter was like $1.99. And so we're anticipating it to be probably a couple dollars higher than that. We may have to relook at the budget later on and amend it to make sure that that is adjusted, but it's just, that's those of you that are farmers and everywhere else are traveling, everybody's feeling that same pinch. So Mr. Pincock is going to keep an eye on that. We'll do the same thing that we did in years past, where he'll buy as soon as he feels that it's at the lowest, and then we'll ratify it afterwards. Maintenance and grounds custodial, just keeping up with everything. Boilers are all on and with the winter weather and just winter preparation. So appreciate our maintenance, grounds and custodial department. Food services, as I met with Mrs. Ward, her budget has been able to increase this last year, a lot of times from the grants and things that she has written, but also from some of the benefits of having a seamless summer programs, which allows all kids to have lunch for free, has allowed that program to increase its funds. And so she is going to purchase a new stove, a prep table, and a blender that will go to the Hamer kitchen. And
So that
so
stove is actually a stove oven combination.
stove oven combination for those that know a lot about stoves. But she's super excited about that and going to be able to utilize that money and push it right back in. Those are some of the requirements of anything that the food service, when it gets the money, it has to go right back into that program. And so we're seeing some good things from her and that department. Technology, just a camera update. If we remember that we have all the indoor cameras, and we do have the signs up that indicate that the camera system, which is different than our past camera system, does allow for both audio and visual. And so those are up within all the different buildings in the district. We are waiting on some of the outside cameras still. In the meantime, our old camera system is still in place, but just an update that they did get enough outdoor cameras for Hamer to be completed, so that campus is complete with indoor and outdoor cameras. Some highlights from our schools. STEM class, they built a catapult and they took it to a competition in Idaho Falls and they placed fourth. And so this picture here doesn't give quite.
It is deceiving.
It is deceiving. But I was at my superintendent meeting, and the representative from the College of Eastern Idaho, when she got there, she was excited. She's like, "We just had the catapult competition." And she said, "West Jefferson's catapult won the award for the most intimidation," because it was like a huge, like it was by far bigger than any. I don't want to say we placed fourth, so I didn't mean it underperformed, but at least it was fun. And the feedback from the STEM class and for Mr. Packer was the kids had a great time with that.
And since the competition, they did continue to work on theirs, and they are now getting it about 250 feet every time they throw a pumpkin.
So next year, watch out, we're
Yes.
improving on each trial. So that was one thing where that was good. We did have our Veterans Day assembly, and here's a few of the Patriot Pin winners that you can see listed on there. Our Veterans Day assemblies took place in Hamer, and then back here. We tried something a little different this year with having it in the auditorium. The goal was to have the veterans in front where the kids could sing to the veterans and make it more specialized for the veterans. We tried it here. Some feedback that we got, some people weren't pleased about that. They wanted to also watch the kids. We'll look into that, possibly change it next year, but we tried it this way this year, and there were some pros and cons with any venue that we had. But our goal with this last veterans one is that the kids would be able to sing to the veterans, but also the statute. There's a statute that says on Veterans Day, it's one of those holidays where we get to have a instruction in that. We wanted to have a video that talked about Veterans Day for the kids to see. Sometimes in a big gym setting, that's lost a little bit when there's so many people that you don't have that intimate feel. And so that was the purpose of this last Veterans Day assembly. We recognize that it wasn't as comfortable for some of the parents or the community members, but it's something that we'll look in. Like here's the famous term: if it's been made by man, it can be changed by man. So there's some things that we can always look into.
So how did they used to do it before? Did they just have one meeting? Because parents said they had to go to 3 different meetings. And they were all the same.
Parents don't have to come to this. The purpose of this was for the veterans. If parents wanted to come and watch, that was their choice. My 3 years, I can go back in history. The first year that we did it was all in the gym. The second year we didn't have one because of COVID. This third year we tried it here. And so I think a majority of them have all been done in the big gym. And again, there's nothing, like we didn't have an evil intention to be like, ha 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 ha, let's put it in here. The goal was let's have something where the veterans can just get the full brunt of the songs from the kids, make it more for them.
Okay.
But again, we're open. We hear the feedback, and we're open to try it a different way. And And so just because it was done this way doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. So thank you for that question. So you can see that the different individuals, the first place, Jaylee Ball for the Voice of Democracy and Patriot Pen was Colt Smith, which I think is the first time that a sixth grader actually took first place, which was pretty fun. The VFW also announces the Teacher of the Year, and Mrs. Lorwell was chosen for the Teacher of the Year. So congratulations to her. Soil conservation, there's a poster contest, and Berkeley Burnshaw won first place with that one. And there's a picture of Berkeley holding her poster. So congratulations to her on that. The junior high play, which we were at the ISBA conference, so we weren't able to attend unless Nedra or Tyson, I don't know if you guys were able to make it, but here's some pictures from the Moana play for the junior high. And this is the first time I can remember we have, that's like Mac, Paul, and Charlie Holdaway on that one. This is the first time that we've had the junior high play, I believe, at least in my time here. I don't know if previously with other times, but this is something that we've talked with Mrs. Erickson, and she's super excited about this. The kids were excited about the junior high play. I believe this is just one way to help get kids a chance to be part of it. It goes right along with our mission statement: small school, big opportunities, endless possibilities. You know, I think when you look at a lot of these things, it meets what our mission statement is. Another highlight: the occupational health class had a CPR training. Mr. Davis was one of the participants, and so he, along with 16 other students, were in, and they earned their CPR card. So thanks to Dina in that class. Some of the other extracurricular things: our football team qualified for the state playoffs, ended up with a 5-4 record. Volleyball placed second at districts and competed at state tournament. Volleyball did win their first game at state, which was an upset over the second ranked team. So good for them. And cross country had 4 runners qualify. This is a highlight: Kaylee Dowling, one of our cross country runners, did sign a letter of intent to run the Montana State University in Billings. And so the school highlighted her in this great accomplishment. So congratulations to Kaylee. Here's a list of some all-conference football team. I'll read the first team. Kessa Newman as an offensive line, Dylan Burtonshaw and Casson Rogers both had running back and defensive back for first team. So congratulations to them on the first team, and of course the others that were second team and honorable mention. All-conference volleyball. First team, I'll read the first team ones: Lindsay Dowling, Caroline Taylor, Cambry Hall. It looks like we have outside hitter. Caroline Taylor was middle blocker as well. So Haley Moss, Jordan Torgerson, and Riley Egan. So congratulations to our first team, but of course, the others that are on second team and honorable mention. So appreciate everybody. Madam Chair, a few highlights of some of the things going on in the district. I know we had others dances going on. I know the BPA did a fundraiser as well with the earlier part of the month with the community. So just a lot of good things. You know, we're doing our very best with, as a small school, having these big opportunities, endless possibilities. Always learning, always growing. We're not perfect, but you know what? I'm really proud of the direction that we're going. So thank you, Madam Chair. If there's any questions, I can take them now, or we can wait till later.
Nedra and I went to the Hamer Carnival, and I don't know about you, but I was terrified in the
Spook Alley
portion. That was fun.
I went through it.
I heard I wasn't able to make it to there because we had another commitment with my older kids, but my wife took my younger kids,
I started it.
and I think one of my kids had to request that the light be turned on during Spook Alley. So you weren't the only one, Madam Chair.
It was very well attended.
The place was packed.
It was.
It's hard to get down the aisles. It was really
Great support,
very
you know,
well
and I love,
supported.
I know in years past, we've had different, like one school, both schools would do it. I know like years ago, but we're a district, and I think it's wonderful that we can have opportunities to do things together. And that's, you know, it's one thing that it didn't put on here that I appreciate with the Moana play. Mr. Johnson invited Hamer to come down and participate in that, and just appreciate his efforts in looking at this as we're a district.
Right.
We're not just Tarrant Elementary. We're not just the junior high. We're a district, and you know we appreciate the support, and the Hamer Carnival. What a perfect example Because you've had people from all over the district going and supporting that. It's not just us all individually, it's us together. So thank you for pointing that out.
Oh, and we came home with several goldfish,
Everybody gets a roll.
right?
Are your goldfish still alive?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't have any public input unless you read three sheets.
No.
Okay. Well, the floor will be open for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I make that motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Moving right along to policy. This is our final reading.
Yes, so with all the different readings, and I know as the board members were able to put their suggestions through the last several meetings, and a lot of it I think is cleaning up, putting a comma here, this, making sure that, and I know that Mrs. DeGraw's been working on that, but Madam Chair, where we're at right now really is we've reviewed the 5,000 policies. This is the second reading, and I think we're at a place where the board could have further comment or move on the proposal.
Okay. Did anyone have anything that wasn't grammatically related? Questions or concerns? If not, the floor will be open for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the policy 5,000
Final reading.
in the final reading.
Is there
Jennifer
a-
did have a question that she had put in her notes.
Well, I'm not finding it right
There
now.
was, there was a question on the bus driver, if they tested positive for being under the influence while driving. The policy states that the bus driver will not be able to drive for 24 hours within the district. I just want to clarify, that's a minimum.
I
For the
said
district.
never.
Right, and that's what she put on her notes, is that
But
she
is it
thinks it should
legal?
be never again. And so,
I say one strike, you're out on that one, but what is that? A policy says they can come back, but I'm wondering why.
I wonder if it would allow for due process.
That's what I want to get.
For further investigation. I think the minimum of 24 hours just allows that to us to be able to meet. 'Cause what we would do is we would meet and make that decision in executive session on whether an employee would be placed on administrative leave. And if they're placed on administrative leave, we would decide right there whether or not they're terminated or.
that would be up to the board to impose more than that minimum.
I just wondered what the policy, what it legally.
And I don't disagree with saying never, so let's pull it up here.
I was also wondering about smokeless tobacco.
So it's that bottom attachment. This
This
is
is a long haul through.
It has been
58-25.
yes.
5825. I'll pull that up, so then,
So you'll just have to scroll down, Mr. Williams. I don't have a Zoom.
50-30, excuse me.
5830.
I wrote several questions and I see you've answered them throughout here, Carrie. So
Mhm. There was a part that you had asked if we did, and we weren't doing that. And so because we don't have that procedure in policy, so I did remove that from the policy.
Okay,
So in the trucking industry, if someone is found on the influence of drugs, like a DUI, is suspension of commercial license.
for one time.
For one time.
Is that permanent or can they
After some time.
reapply?
That I'm not 100%, I think after a while, they can reapply for it. But it does suspend their commercial license for a certain period of time. That period of time, I don't know, but like, if they were, had like illegal drugs in them, it's not necessarily that they lose their license, but like for my company, if I have someone who tests positive for
So you passed it, Mr. Williams.
whatever, they become an insurance liability, and I won't use them anymore. They do have classes,
Right there.
and I don't know
above
if there's
enforcement.
anything different. I suspect where you have to have commercial
Okay.
license to be a bus driver. It's probably the same, but there are classes that are called like back classes where they go teach about drugs and all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of this is why we want to do this. That's like a 2 to 4 week class.
Well, I always believe in second chances, but not with children's. Children are involved.
As a school district, we couldn't afford to put someone back in the bus,
No.
especially after 24 hours.
Number 10.
Because
So
So it's page 5 of this policy.
So that's why I thought maybe, I didn't know what the legal part of it
There it
was,
is.
but I say we don't give a second chance in that case.
So would your suggestion be,
They will not be allowed to operate a commercial vehicle for this district for 24 hours from the time of the test. And I say if they've tested positive, they won't ever be able
from
to.
the time to test it, that doesn't necessarily mean 24 hours after. Because your test might be.
I think this
Right.
verbiage allows for if there was for some reason a false positive, or if there
I
was
don't know.
whatever it might be, it allows
If an
it.
employee tests between 0.02 and 0.39, that driver will not be allowed to operate a commercial vehicle for this district for 24 hours from the time of the test. They should never be able to do it again. That's all I'm saying. This says we have to let them back. I say we don't ever let them back. How do you feel?
so is there a
This
difference?
doesn't.
It doesn't say we have to let them back.
Yeah,
It just says we
doesn't-
won't allow them to drive for at least a day.
In certain circumstances.
I know, but
And
it
then,
says that there's, we're open to having them back.
But it would be up to the discretion of those
Yeah.
involved to make that determination.
What do we think?
But it's not stated that way here. is
No, I don't
What
want
what the
it.
problem is it's not
So-
stated that it would go before.
Is it okay if I, Madam Chair, if I ask Deputy Keller a question? Deputy Keller, do you ever have, in the law enforcement scene, I don't know you personally, but are there ever times when at blood alcohol concentration levels, those tests that are done are contested in court or anything like that? Are there times that those could be inaccurate?
Generally with our equipment, no, but do you have the right to contest those? Yes, and they are often contested. This is, and generally that happens more in the suspension, especially with commercial driver's licenses. If you get a DUI and you have a test, it's an automatic suspension for, I don't remember exactly how long, it's 6 months or something. You have an automatic suspension that comes the day when we arrest you. We serve you with that. You can contest that with the Department of Transportation, and that's a process that they have to go through, and they can contest that. Does every now and then those get thrown out? Yes. But what you're doing with your time frame is showing if it really is, if there is something we have to do another test, or if they really are suspended, because they are automatically more than likely going to be suspended. So that's more than likely what your time frame is specific for. But generally, and a lot of policies can't say we will absolutely do this if this happens.
So we need,
You have to leave room because it sounds like it says you can do that, but it doesn't mean you have to.
why would we even want to? Within 24 hours after they're tested? they can go back to work. I mean, we are desperate for bus drivers.
You just leave it off first.
Not that that would ever happen to any of ours, but it could, you know.
Yeah.
You have to,
But you also have to understand, what is it for, what was it for? If it's alcohol, that's one thing.
it
If
says
it's
alcohol.
if it's a new drug that they've been given, because if it's a DUI, it can be either alcohol or it can be drugs.
Well, this
And
is
some of
says
that could be a
blood
prescription.
alcohol. Blood
Can I
alcohol
show him the
concentration, BAC. So maybe that's.
Are they required to report that to us? Yeah, I'm gonna find out. Well, the bus driver comes out and it's a wild weekend. How do we know?
Outside of.
Going to the chapel time. Really depends on what you as a board would like to do. Like I can see the point that if we wanted to, there would be nothing against us putting in what we want it to say in that section. And then this would be the first reading, and then we'll have a second reading, and we could do all of the other policies as written. And then with the exception of
Yeah,
this one.
so we can clarify this one maybe.
Yeah.
Second reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing I would is talk to the attorney, because you have the information, most of it has to go underneath this one, and it says it in there. You have to offer a lot of these things and most of them. But the reason it's these numbers, because with the commercial license, that's a DUI. Normal DUIs are 0.08,
Oh, wow.
but a commercial driver's license is 0.02.
Hmm.
Because you are operating children or heavy equipment, so.
So a bus driver is considered
Yeah,
a commercial because they have to have a CDL, right?
Yes.
Class B passengers.
So with that information, is this up to you guys?
Well, it says at the bottom, drivers shall also receive information about legal requirements, district policies, and disciplinary consequences related to the use of alcohol and drugs. So as part of that additional information that they're given, that would.
Because we could,
clarify.
I say you take that sentence out. That driver will not be allowed to operate a commercial vehicle in 24 hours.
If they get a DUI,
They can't
Commercial
anyway, but
suspended.
then why do we have it in there? We shouldn't. It's confusing, it gives them something to latch on to.
Doesn't mean people don't try.
Yeah. So. Needs a rewrite.
what would you suggest it say? Driver will not be allowed to operate a commercial vehicle
For the district
for the district.
ever. Ever again.
Well, would they be considered to tested positive, not if it's 0.04, but 0.02?
Yeah.
Or above? That second sentence there says they're considered positive if it's 0.04.
Oh,
It should be 0.02. That's what we show as the minimum for the next sentence.
so that really should say 0.04 anyway,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So this is saying if they're under the actual limit.
We just said that they're considered at 0.02.
Commercial driver's
It's
license is
commercial.
0.02.
So the 0.04 should be changed to 0.02.
Mhm.
Oh, right there, that one
Yeah.
right there should be 0.02.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we could just say,
So this one addresses specifically the 0.2 to 0.04.
The consequence for drivers found to have an alcohol concentration of that percent 0.2 to 0.4.
Right, so
So-
that's why, because this one's addressing specifically that range,
Right.
not anything above that range.
So you just say Jordan School District, well, you may not want to say that. I do. Jordan District will not hire a driver.
Or West Jefferson.
Okay.
Yeah, you're a little north and colder. So West Jefferson will not hire.
I don't got over that.
Haven't had a meeting in a while.
I do have a red tie on. I hope I don't slip up either.
So I have a question. Is this applying to only when they're driving a bus or any time when they're driving?
So in their own personal vehicle during the summertime.
Because I think that's why it would address specifically the 0.02 to 0.39. Is if they're driving their own personal vehicle.
Does that change? 'Cause I think I don't think any of us are fighting against that we need to protect our kids, that we need to make sure that we have a clear line. I think we're all understanding that. Tyson, so how does that work for in a hypothetical situation? You have a driver, they get a DUI
In their own personal
in their
vehicle.
own personal
New
vehicle.
Year's Eve, you know.
It still transfers because it's suspended, whether it's a the commercial vehicle or the personal vehicle.
No, it does transfer.
And it's on their license, and I don't, Officer Carroll, maybe you can speak to this. I don't know how long that lasts. I don't remember. If it's indefinite. I don't know
How long the suspension's for? Each of them are a little different. The basic one that they automatically get, I think, is for first one. I know it's at least a month, but I think it's closer to 6 months, and then the judge can make it longer. And for specific things. And I was wrong, the 0.04 for 0.04 is for a commercial vehicle, 0.02 is a juvenile. A juvenile is 0.02, 0.04 is commercial. So that may be why it's between those two. You're still testing, but you're not quite at DUI.
And so we probably have to leave this specific because it is more than the actual law.
Why do you have, if it's not 0.02 to 0.39, why do you have that in there if it doesn't count?
I think you guys probably have it in there just because even if they test for a little bit and they're still driving, or like they're on the bus and they came in hungover and they test at that, like you said, it's still a liability. They're still under the influence. Yes, they may be under the limit.
The legal limit.
The legal limit of what we're going to arrest them for, but because they have our children in those buses, it may be something else with that's why it may be in there.
It's just an extra protection for us. I feel like
Yeah.
we're not hitting that limit yet, but we're saying you're getting close and that's too much.
Well, and I know this is students are completely different, but like in a commercial world of transportation, a lot of companies will say, when they're going through criteria for hiring, they will accept people who have had DUIs that have had 5 years or greater since the occurrence. And so I don't know if that's something we can put into here if that interests.
Because there's part of me that when you say never, I like that stance because it sends a clear, strong message. Then there's also
That's why I ask, is this legal?
but then there's also the side of me that's like, okay, did they make a mistake when they were driving for Madison? Not us.
So we don't care.
But then they move out here, it's been 10 years ago, they made a mistake, but if we had something where never,
They haven't,
Well, you probably pull a motor vehicle record anyway before you
Yeah.
hire. So it would show any kind
it
of,
would,
it would show any kind of
Any-
tickets.
our
DUIs,
background checks would bring up a
anyway.
DUI.
And if it's within 5 years, or has been 5 years since they had that, I guess, to me, that's saying they've learned their lesson in a way, and I would think it would be okay to bring them on.
I don't know. What we could do is we could move to approve all of them, but this one here, and then revisit this.
Because some of those are questions I would say you probably want to ask the attorney.
Understand? I think so too.
So I have a
How
question.
you can word that.
I have a
Yeah.
question for you. So if a person gets a DUI after so many years, does it drop off your record? Or is it a permanent on your record?
Well, when we search your record, it'll automatically come up.
So it stays on your record. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got some I've had recently that are clear back in the 80s
Oh,
They've come back off the wagon.
and still show the DUI.
Right. Well,
Okay,
Mr. Burton Shaw, you made a motion that we will go ahead and let die for lack of a second. And he wants to revise and make a different motion.
So it was
5830
5830P is the one
that we have concerns
that
with.
we have concerns with.
Is that the last policy?
So, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve all 5,000 series policy for fundraising with the exception of 5830P.
Is there a second?
can I second that one now?
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
I will contact our legal team to see what we need to, what we're allowed to do there, why we would do that.
Thank you, Mrs. DeGraw.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
Good discussion.
ELA book purchase for the elementary.
So, Madam Chair, in an October board meeting, Mr. Johnson introduced some Nat Geo leveled readers that we're seeking for approval for purchase. Something that we do have with the ESSER funds and the learning loss. These would meet those requirements, and so we'd be able to utilize those funds for it. The purpose of these would be to supplement our ELA reading part, use them for high interest leveled readers, but also for comprehension and comprehension questions. Mr. Johnson, is there anything else with that? I think did I explain that? So I know that we were able to see those last time, but we just want to come to the board and ask for approval so we can get moving on this.
What grades will utilize these?
Second, third, and fourth.
The floor be open for a motion.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I make that motion that we approve the ELA book purchases for the elementary school.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Ratifying recruiting and retainment agreement.
All right, so this is one that asking for a ratify because it's something that the district did need to move on for a time sensitive decision that we needed to make. So earlier this fall, we did receive a grant from the governor. The grant was a recruiting retainment grant, also known as heard it as a substitute teacher grant. But all of those things are allowable costs with that. And so the governor sent out a portion of this amount early in September, and then the last portion came out November 1st. So it was after our last board meeting. And so that money came in November 1st. But then we were told we need to spend it by December 15th. It needs to be all spent by December 15th for that. And so what we looked at the allowable costs with this, and when we have grants that come from the state, it's a lot. Sometimes it's a lot easier instead of having like one or two little things and to have a big group to go through for that. So we looked at that, and our classified employees qualify for this grant. And so a lot of the other districts were using this as a one-time thank you to your classified employees. And this is how what I look at that as superintendent is our classified employees are choosing to work for us at this time where it's really hard to find employees, and they are choosing that over other jobs. And sometimes yes, we have been able to increase our pay to be a little bit more competitive, but there are times that they choose to work in the schools because they value our mission, they value working with kids, and we wanted to reward them. So as a district, we have gone out and paid our employees $317, and I want to come to the school board to have that ratified
Mr. Williams,
as a thank
that's
you.
classified employees.
Classified. Thank you for the correction. So this does not go to administrators. It does not go to me, does not go to because it's not allowable from that grant. And if we don't use the grant money, it's gone. And what would happen is if we chose not to use the grant money, it would be just put back into the kitty for the state of Idaho and pushed out to other school districts. And so our certified teachers do not get included in this either. However, I do feel like we do a lot for them as well. And this is just one of those times that, based on the money that was available, we wanted to push it out into them. So does the board have any questions for me?
When we gave that bonus, not a bonus, what was it
The-
called?
the-
Before, to certificated and.
Yes, so there were
They
different.
were not included in that. But it's classified.
The classified was.
They did.
We were able to push it out, and we pushed it out at different levels last year. So the teachers last year had a higher amount than what our classified did.
Really a good thing being classified.
I think it's,
Great.
I'm glad
It's
that
great timing.
it's
What
great
time
timing,
does this come in?
this morning's.
Came this morning.
Really?
Yep.
And so we had several, and really this is something that as superintendent, because of the time crunch, we needed to move on it. And so the ratifying of it just allows the board to give their stamp of approval to say, yes, this is what we wanted to do. Mrs. Dixon, who oversees the special ed department, called me last night. She's like, I had several, because I didn't tell anybody about this. This was something that we kind of kept it secret because we wanted to push it out as a surprise. And she had several employees calling and saying, you guys messed up, you sent me extra money. And I told her, it's okay, tell them it's, and just the gratitude for those employees to say thank you. And so, as I know that as a school board, this is what, you guys get to put the final stamp on it, but it's something that we felt was, we looked at this money, what better way for us to say thank you to our employees, to say thank you for working for us. Here's a little bit of extra that comes because, these come from COVID funds, but they do, like, there are people who choose not to work right now. There are people who can choose to work other places. And this is what the governor's grant was intended to do, was to get it into the hands of those who really sacrifice the most for working in these types of situations. And like I said, I'm not going to see a cent of this. Our teachers aren't. But the teachers that I talked to about this were so happy for the classified. I haven't heard one teacher come up and say, hey, what about me?
I think you ought to send an email out, and let them know what that is for.
I was waiting until it was ratified. I wanted to make sure.
I see.
I already got a little ahead, but then I would say, boom, here we have it. So I'm so excited to be able to offer this for them.
I appreciate your staff having this out of initiative. We have to move on this and the board will be understanding. So thank you for getting it done.
If we
We're
did
not
not get
losing
it
it.
spent, we would have lost it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I appreciate it. All right, the floor will be open for a motion then.
Madam Chair, I move that we ratify the spending of the governor's grant for our classified employees.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we have a Monday night activity.
This should be quick. Amory Elementary will have a Monday night activity that will be on the 20th of December. And so just need a motion for that approval.
Just as a sentence, it is close to 80 years now tradition that they have it that Monday night before Christmas, before the holiday.
Yeah.
And thank you for granting that.
Oh, that's-
If we do.
The floor will be open for that motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we ratify that Monday activity so we can keep our tradition going.
Point of,
No.
It needs to be
ratified.
approved.
Oh, approved.
Yeah.
Oh, approved. Sorry about that.
Can you restate that then?
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the Monday activity for the Christmas play in Amory Elementary School.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Okay. There's been a lot of talk about a travel bus.
Yes, this has been a fun conversation. So what this action item entails, there are a group of community members that have approached the district, me as a superintendent, about the possibility of donation of a travel bus to the district. And so this would be complete private donors going out. Some of them are on the booster club, some of them are not, but it's just, they wanted to come and say, what would it look like if we purchased a travel bus and gave it to the district? So when I was given that information, a lot of this is spearheaded also by efforts of a lot of different individuals, including Coach Croft, our varsity coach, has also been heavily involved in this process. And so he reached out to me and I said, well, let me look into it. Mr. Pincock and I had several conversations with the state transportation director. And we said, okay, what about travel buses? I almost feel like I need my little bus in here like, to be able to do that. And so we've called and asked about what are the pros and cons to a district with a travel bus. So really what we have to look at is a travel bus would be called a non-conforming bus to the transportation department's allowable reimbursement process. That's really what it looks like. So like our Suburban or any other vehicle that we have in the district, those are non-conforming vehicles. And what we do is we want to keep those things as separate as possible if we choose to have a non-conforming bus. So during that committee meeting, I discussed the pros and cons with that. And so what it would really look like is when we have all of our conforming buses, all of our yellow buses, the miles that they drive, the maintenance that they have, the depreciation, everything is reimbursable with those items. And so anything else outside of that could take away from the overall budget from the transportation department. So Mr. Pincock and we said, well, let's look at the pros and cons. What would it look like if we were to receive a bus? And again, this is a situation where we have donors that are coming in, they're excited about this. I'm not coming into them and saying, hey, this is a dumb idea, like we should look at this. What I shared with them is, if this bus were to come in, these are the pros and cons to our budget. So the biggest one that we would have to look at is, it really depends on how we use a bus when it comes in. And so the miles that are driven on a yellow school bus, 50% of the driver, 50% of the fuel, and 85% of the maintenance is all reimbursable. The state has changed the rules because they want kids in yellow buses. But a district can, and legally can, utilize a travel bus. But those miles that are driven to those events don't count towards the overall reimbursement. So you would just be running it completely outside of that. So I asked the state transportation director, his recommendation would be that districts only do the yellow buses. That's his recommendation. He says they're built different, they're safer, and they have the reimbursement thing, so it's more beneficial for the district when it comes to that budget. But if we were to have one come, I asked him, so outside of understanding that, what would it take if we still wanted to do that? So you can see here, I have that highlighted in that we would want to have a Department of Transportation inspection done annually. We need to have it maintained or repaired at a separate facility. Mr. Pincock looked into it. He went and talked to the new diesel mechanic shop that's just right here by the cemetery. They would be able to perform all of the things for a potential bus to be donated. We would have to have all the gas and other expenses would have to be kept and tracked separately outside the regular district transportation budget. And so there's a way for us to do this. We would just have to keep it separate for us to be able to make sure that anything that's done on this on a bus or a non-conforming vehicle doesn't take away from the other transportation stuff. So there would be a little bit more of an expense to us as a district, and we would lose out on a little bit of reimbursement cost. But when I talked with this group, I just said, so they didn't come out and say, yep, this is the bus we have. There was a bus that was here yesterday from an individual that was wanting to sell one. This committee, I'll just call it the bus committee, went out and looked at the bus. I haven't heard anything officially from them that they're gonna say, yes, here's the bus that we have and this is what we want to do. But I did talk to them about, what about the future impacts potentially for the need of additional support for repairs or major maintenance? I think if we were to receive a bus, we would pay for the fuel, we'd pay for the general maintenance, we'd pay for the driver, those are things that we would assume. We would assume the liability for the bus, so it would go on our insurance. We would hold the ownership of the bus here at the district. But this group of community members did say that they are open to, they recognize that if there's a major repair on it, that they would be the ones that would need to help with it. And so I don't think we have to have a contract in place for it, because really what would happen is if the bus was donated to us and an engine went out, it's unrealistic for them to expect to say, hey, you need to use your transportation budget from your district to fix a bus that we donated to you for $20,000. That's not what they're asking. But what they're wanting to do is since it's their own private funds, they're excited about this. And honestly, it would be a cool thing for our kids to have a fun bus that's wrapped, it says West Jefferson on it. And if this is something that community members or a booster club wanted to do, really, they just want to make sure that the blessing is there, I guess you could say, from this governing body. But I don't see how we could say no to a gift, but we do have to have our eyes open to say that there could be some potential things when it comes to going down the thing. So I'll take questions, we can discuss this, but I'm really appreciative of this group coming in. They're advocating for our kids. They want it to be able to do that, for them to have something like this. And I feel like we've researched the pros and cons. It was not going to be a surprise to Mr. Pincock or myself if a bus were to come in. We know what the risks are. It's just whether or not something that there's something that this board would feel like, oh, we shouldn't accept a gift. And with the conversations that we have, I want us to be open and share potential things to say, hey, what about this? What about that? But at the end of the day, I think all of us recognize that when it's an outside group wanting to help, we shouldn't be the ones saying, you shouldn't spend your money there, because that's their choice. It's their donation. But if it was our budget, if this was me coming to the board saying, hey, I think we should take our money from the district and go out and buy this travel bus, I think we should be, I would be worried about that. I don't think I would approach that as a superintendent to say, I think we should buy this bus. But if somebody's donating it, I think it changes the conversation. So I will sit back and ask, answer questions or let you guys discuss or share your feelings. I wonder if any of you have been contacted by this group at all. So,
For one thing, does this have to go, donations, don't they go through the Ed Foundation?
I don't think we have any.
It can, but it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to, but it can.
Okay, so what if these donors,
Mhm.
which I assume are some of the big farmers in our area, what if they have a bad couple of years? We have a blown engine.
And the
Then
bus sits
So
and
it sits.
then it sits and we scrap it. Like that's what they said. They said, as they discussed, and I don't think, again, it was a committee.
Mhm.
And everybody on the committee has the exact same feeling, but I think the committee, they had this, hey, let's try this if we can. I know that we've tried it in years past as a district. I know that we've had some breakdown in different places of the old, I don't know, Tyson, if you remember some of the old site buses. But we had some that broke down and we had to send out emergency buses to get people in the middle of the night. There's always that risk. But I think back then the district bought it. The district was the one that went out
Yeah, I think it was too.
and assumed that. And through my research with the transportation department, Mr. Pincock, that's why I didn't come in. That's why I proposed that we have a travel bus that's a yellow bus that has reimbursable. yes, it was a big price tag, but we're gonna have 85% of that reimbursed back to the district over the next 15 years. If this was us deciding what should we do for travel stuff, that's where I'm gonna go. But there's no reason why a group of people can't come out and say, hey, try this. And one of the comments from the committee meeting was, hey, what if we try this and in 10 years we find out that it's just not working? At least we can say we tried it. And I think that was the sentiment of some of them.
And how old are these buses when they get rid of them?
Oh, they're used and they're wore out.
They are? They're used to worn out.
No one's gonna surplus anything, but they still would have to pass the Department of Transportation inspection. And again, this would be their, this group of men don't want to purchase something that's gonna, they want it to work.
And I'm grateful.
Yeah.
That they are out there looking out for us, but I just always have questions.
And so the one that we looked at yesterday was 1990.
Oh.
And it was the age, which, it's, but quite old. And the mileage, I don't think is accurate. And it was a former site bus. And so right now we see, like, I was hoping that we'd see one of those nice white ones go by, and they're just
Yeah.
like,
They're like, pretty luxurious tour buses though, like a tour bus.
Yeah. So I went and I wrote in it. And again, this committee didn't decide that that's the one they wanted. I haven't heard back from them. But I think for the purpose of this, for this board, is if we proved that the board would approve that the superintendent can establish procedures to accept the donation of a travel bus, that gives us the flexibility that you entrust me to work with this committee to find the bus, to get that where it doesn't cost us anything initially, it's them completely. But then that way it has the approval of this board or the disapproval of this board, whatever you want to do. Because if this board decides to say, hey, let's not even entertain that, that's the board's prerogative if they want to as well.
I just out of curiosity, was the committee aware of how the funding works, how we are reimbursed for things, or were they shocked by that? Did that change their minds on?
They were grateful to understand that. I think that helped them understand why we're
just automatic?
like just jumping right in saying, hey, yeah. But even after I looked at the pros and cons, I still don't think that the cons outweigh to the point to say, no, we don't want to. But they do recognize though that it will potentially have an impact. But I believe that our community will support us with what we need to do. The schools that do utilize travel buses, they recognize that it's an investment in a different way. And so that's kind of what my take was, that they understood it. They were appreciative to hear that. They were glad that we looked into both sides. I think it could have been a much interesting conversation if my understanding was we shouldn't even touch this. But because it's coming from outside donors and private donors, why wouldn't we approach it? The state superintendent or supervisor for the transportation, he said from a district standpoint, if it was us going all in, taking ours and investing it from our side, he said it wouldn't be a wise decision. But because it's from the outside donors, I think it makes it at least triable.
Do you have drivers who are comfortable driving a bus like this?
We haven't explored that. I think we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. But I think there will be some that will enjoy it and some that would shy away from it. I think we get the same thing with the flat face travel bus. We have some who are more comfortable in the regular route buses than that. But that's a good question.
And so do we have this other bus that we just got.
Mhm.
We're using that as our travel bus now.
And it can run routes, it can do anything.
Yeah. But do we need the two? In your opinion?
Yeah, because we will have plenty of times where we have, especially in the winter, we're gonna have junior high going out at the same time. We have junior high basketball, girls basketball, boys basketball, and wrestling. So I actually think this could be a help for us. It's something that, again, yes, it would help us. People might ask, well, why aren't you just jumping on this, Superintendent Williams? I would look for a yellow bus if I was gonna do it from the district standpoint. But if it's, again, if it's coming from outside donors, then I think we can entertain this.
So that if we had something like this, are you saying that like varsity would get first dibs on it?
I haven't
Yeah,
dived into, I know it will, but it's-
Throwing it out there.
and I get that. And should the boys get it or the girls get it? Does the wrestlers get it or the,
Yeah, you know, the time of use of it should be divided equally, or you're gonna have
and
people.
I have people always talking about
Complaining.
equality all the time.
Coin flips.
Just want
Who gets
all
the bus
questions
tonight?
out there.
Leg
A coin
wrestles, whatever, Indian coin flips. I think that's something that I think will happen. We will have to go over that and somebody might have their feelings hurt or somebody's gonna say, well, my dad donated this, it should go to this. And but I think the committee needs to realize, and they do, they didn't come with any, that's why these procedures, as it's coming in, I think we'll just say, you know what, we're gonna do the very best we can, separate it the best we can, but it's gonna be based on a lot of factors. It could be on distance, it could be on available drivers. There's so many different things that we'll look at to determine whether somebody gets the yellow bus or in the event that this plays out. But I think like that's why my proposal, if the board does entertain a motion, would be to establish it where I would have the ability to set up a procedure with that.
I have a question. Our new travel bus, could it have a wrap put on it?
When you say a rack, like
A wrap, WestJet.
I have not
Why a
asked
wrap?
that.
Is that possible or not?
It's being used for routes too.
I think what would happen is that would take it from the conforming to the
Oh.
non-conforming because of
Okay.
the safety.
So then we might lose our state funding on it then.
We would,
Okay.
which we don't want to lose that
No.
appreciation
Not on that one.
on that one there, because then, but
So it is being used on routes then, right?
Yes.
it can be. I don't believe it has yet,
Routes.
but it
But it would be a backup.
would be a backup. And that's the thing with all of the yellow buses, the rules have changed over the years. In years past, they made it so you didn't have to. They made it so, they made the rules better for districts financially because they want students in the yellow buses.
Mhm.
But I think we should put them in there as much as possible.
Well, the insurance companies like it.
And the insurance company like to, but it's something that we can do. So good question.
Well, I appreciate the committee. I just hope the understanding is there that their generosity didn't end in the bus.
Yeah, Mr. Pincock did send me a lifeline right now. He just said, generally, we, on the longest trip, they try to get the nicest bus to go to the longest trip.
Oh,
Makes sense.
So that's one of the factors that they use.
okay, I agree.
But, if it's this other bus that comes in, it has a governor on it, so I don't know. So that means Peggy's not in that one.
Interesting that you know that. Well, if there's no further discussion before we open for a motion,
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the superintendent to establish procedures to accept a donation of a travel bus to the district.
there's a second. I second that. Those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. And thank you to that committee.
Yes. One thing from that, before we go on there, if it's okay, that, the committee, they really appreciate the opportunity for this. Coach Croft has always been like, hey, thank you for listening, thank you for considering this. And it's really one thing that the committee's like, we don't want confrontation. And I think our society is so done with just the fighting and the bickering. And so thank you to our committee. Thank you to the community. And so we'll see where this plays out. They might get together and say that bus was not what we want to spend our money on, but that's that group's decision.
Super.
Okay.
All right, construction management hiring and agreement.
All right, this is really a follow-up from our RFQ process that we conducted earlier this month. And so as part of that RFQ, for a construction manager and general contractor. So our committee met together, reviewed it, and from the RFQs, we selected Headwaters Construction as the CMGC. And so I reached out to Headwaters and set up a meeting to discuss preliminary fee proposal. So yesterday, Mr. Soderquist and I sat down and met with them. So they sent us out. So how it works is the RFQ, we just look at qualifications to say, hey, what type of company do we want to work with? Once we reach out to them, they send back a pre-construction fee proposal. So this is what they sent us initially was a 1.25 for the pre-construction fee and a 5.5 for the construction fee. And we met with them and we're like, okay, this company did a great job of being transparent, and I shared that with these other attachments. Our project is really considered a small project in the scope of these bigger companies. And I'm just going to pull up the different things. So as this company, one of the things that we liked about Headwaters is how transparent they were and are in the whole process. They have bigger projects. You know, you can look at Thunder Ridge. That was a $56 million project. And yeah, the total amount that they put in there was less than what they bid or at least proposed to us. And you can see through the different ones, most of these are double-digit million-dollar projects. The lowest one was a middle school, which was in the $5 million range, and it was about 5.25 was their overall costs. I did get off the phone with the CEO of Headwaters prior to this meeting, and he did say that, excuse me. So this is what they sent us for their preliminary construction fees. He's actually going to trim off a 0.5 point on all of that, and it's going to be 5.25. And so even with that, it will come out to really depend on the pre-construction fees are going to be roughly $17,000. And then the construction fees based on really what projects are done. And that's determined after the pre-construction. So we'll sit down with them. We'll talk about all the different projects we wanted to get. They help with all of the bids. I think I put that in this one here. They help with all of the bids, the planning, the organizing, the contractors, making sure the permits are in place. And it will be something that they help us save money overall and basically pay for them. That's kind of how this works. And so what, as I sat down with Mr. Soderquist on this, we both felt like this is a fair agreement. It's actually going to be a little bit less than this as I'm looking at the contract that they sent to us. But it roughly will be between 80,000 and 100,000 that could go out to them, depending on that scope. When you look at that with the percentage compared to other projects, they're not making as much off of us, and it has to be worth their time as well. But we can't clone Mr. Soderquist, unfortunately. And because people have asked, and this is something where I've sat down with my staff and we've looked, could we have done this by ourselves? If Mr. Soderquist really could clone himself and keep doing everything else that has to be done, this would be a full-time job for him to take care of it. And the overall price sounds like a big price tag up front, but really this is over the scope of all of the projects from 3 to 5 years. So when you take the total amount, divide that by the years that go into it, it's really a reasonable and fair price from that. And the part, those that were sitting in on the RFQ, Headwaters, I've worked with them when I was at Kennedy Elementary. I had 0 problems. And then with the superintendents that have worked with them have been very in favor of it. So I think my goal, was to come to the board to ask for a motion to approve the construction manager hiring and agreement, which would allow us just to move forward with that. Are there questions or concerns?
Yes, where they're from.
Rexburg.
They're from Rexburg.
They have it located in Rexburg, and that was one thing that we looked at as a committee. what is your experience with local? Are you going to be able to attend to our needs out here? And, that's the thing is the whole purpose of them coming in is they want to make an impact. They can make more money working in the private sector, but they like to work for schools. They know that we're not making money off of this. We're putting it into kids. And you can see that in a lot of the different projects that they have.
A lot of these places are stretched pretty thin, so you feel confident that they will be able to.
So a lot of them are stretched thin. But if we were trying to do this by ourselves, we don't have an in with anybody else. And if anybody needs to be stretched thin right now, it's somebody that has connection to, they're not, to subcontractors. They're not getting, and that's the part, they're not getting, if they are having a hard time getting bids,
We wouldn't
I
have.
wasn't
wouldn't have.
advocating that we do it
No,
ourselves. I was
you're just clarifying that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a really good point that like some people might look at this and say, wow, that is a lot of money that you're paying just this company to do that. But because of the state of our economy, because of that exact
Right.
thing right there, like we would have a harder time being able to do all of the projects. And so, and then also allowing myself and Mr. Soderquist to do our jobs, to do the other things that you have me do.
Okay. Well, the floor would be open for a motion then.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the construction manager hiring.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Is there any further discussion? Those in favor? Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. If we can get through these next two, then we'll take a break.
All right. So this one here should be straightforward. It's just from our technology department. We did receive a connectivity grant, and I believe it was earlier in the COVID time. They were throwing tons of different grants at us. And this is us just finalizing the process with it. And so part of that grant is going to allow us to have 50 Chromebooks be used in the elementary grades. And that's
Are these in addition or replacements or?
in addition.
In addition, and not every child had one, is I thought they did.
Well, a lot of times when they come in, there's a shelf life on those. And usually what's happened in the district is that the Chromebooks that have been used and they get pushed down and the newer ones come up with the older kids. This is going to be something where we're going to be able to put touch screens, others utilize that. There's a lot of things that can help with this. It opens up timing. I know we have our testing requirements in the spring, but this will allow us to test more efficiently and not take away as much teaching time away from it with that. So it's going to be a great thing for it, but it's just that grant that came through. This is what we wanted to spend it on.
And then don't we give seniors their
So the seniors have the opportunity if they participated in the,
buy, to.
they're able to take that in hand. So
So those have to be.
They do, but that.
they
will
do,
come
but that
from
will come from a different
fund.
fund.
So this is a one-time.
This is just a one-time grant.
So the seniors only get a Chromebook if they paid if they pay the annual $25 fee for the Chromebook, so that if there was damage to it, then it's taken care of. So, but if they sign the waiver to not be part of that program, then they do not get a Chromebook at the end of the.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, the floor will be open for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the Chromebook purchase.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Right, Eagle Rock fabrication purchase approval.
So this is a purchase of over 5,000 that we need to approve. It's from Eagle Rock Fabrication. This company, they fabricated the stands for the softball and baseball field scoreboards. And so this was one of the things where, just to clarify, we're so grateful for our community. They were raising money, bringing it in, getting the cost, but there's also so many, it's kind of like, this is similar to the school bus discussion. There's some always unintended or hidden costs that come into it. And this is just one of those. So as we've looked at this, we want these donations of the softball and baseball scoreboards to last and be put in correctly and put in a way that they stand the test of time.
And Medlick Wind.
And as I'm looking out the window, looks like the flag is like
Right.
straight out, but these are high quality steel frames that will be able to be put into the ground. There will be other costs that come with these scoreboards, as we come with putting the plate down and cement. So, but we'll be using plant facility to take care of this.
Are they paying anything for?
I don't know. When I saw them, they didn't get painted, but I don't know if our maintenance department haven't gone out and put a coat on them. When I helped lift them into Larry's pickup, they were heavy duty. So, but they will stand the test of time with the wind.
Okay, the floor will be open for a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the school board frames from Eagle Rock Fabrication.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
I know it's closed. Madam Chair, we are live now.
Thank you, Mrs. DeGraw. Welcome back, everyone. We're gonna do a schedule change here. Mr. Johnson, you would be willing to come up to our podium here and present on elementary ELA curriculum? We would appreciate it.
Updates, I think, like you said,
What am I presenting?
so last month, we asked Mr. Johnson to come in, he talked about the National Geographic. We were exploring some other items for the elementary curriculum, especially to use with the learning loss and other things. And so there were some other ideas I asked Mr. Johnson to come in, and I don't know if you have a lot to present, but just kind of share where you're at and your thoughts with the board.
A couple of things that I have here is the first one is just improving our writing curriculum. We want to do the writing by design, and that's the same curriculum that Amanda Erickson has already. And so I do have just some quotes on that. This would be through 5th grade, so it's kindergarten through 5th grade. The nice thing about this one is it has writing rubrics already built into it, which is helpful, and they align with the standards. And since we're going to standards, that is helpful. Another thing we're also looking at is just getting more authentic books that are connected to the standards as well, so that we're not, like I said before, we have outdated Hope and Mifflin stories that aren't engaging the teacher. And so we're just looking for something that will still teach to the standards, that focus on the standards. And so this was just an example of this is technically just a blog, but these are the type of books that we were looking for. We're looking for more picture books, but then down below in this blog, it has what standards are covered from each book. And so it'll say, for example, there's this first list of books, answers and you can ask questions and predicting. And so it focuses on those type of standards. So really what we're looking at is just getting more authentic books into the classroom where students can read, they're more engaged. And thank you for the Nat Geo, because that is going to help a ton.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
These are modern books, and I trust the old books, but the new books, there could be anything in them. Are we checking to see some of the questions that they do get to ask, or some of the things, because it's a very conservative neighborhood?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll want to look into those books beforehand. This is just kind of passing around the idea.
Just an idea.
One thing that I like about this approach, where our teachers identify the standards, I think sometimes in our conversations, and even in some of the conferences that I'm at, there's a misunderstanding, or when it comes to curriculum, standards, and teaching. And sometimes they say, well, it's the curriculum. I have to teach the curriculum. On one hand, when I hear that, I hear we just purchased a box curriculum like Hope and Mifflin. And I guarantee that if you just teach all of this stuff, your kids will be taken care of. And a lot of times our teachers will come in new because it's like, hey, I just need to come in and I need to teach this lesson. But we're not saying, why are we teaching this lesson? What's the purpose behind it? Whereas the standards approach is we find the standards first, and then we say, what's the best way to teach this? And I think what we're seeing right now is there's a disconnect with our old Hope and Mifflin. Nothing against Hope and Mifflin. Anybody out there don't want a lawsuit or anything, but it's one of those things that it doesn't adapt to things that the kids are interested in now, and then it has a shelf life to say, in 6 years this curriculum needs to be replaced. Well, it's not the curriculum. It's like we need to focus on the standards and then our teaching techniques on how we are reaching those standards. And I think that, as Mr. Johnson and I have talked, wouldn't you say that this is something that you have the book, you have the standards that it's approaching, but it's in the teaching technique that the teacher engages.
Yes, and that's where we've talked about this before, but having those in the discussions going about the stories rather than just answer the question, okay, the pill is red and move on.
And then one other thing I'm also looking at is just the 95%, we would like to order some more comprehension manuals for the teachers. Just a second. But in our fourth grade, for example, we have 65% of our students in fourth grade have actually tested out of the 15 lessons. And in our
Can you say that one more time?
we have 65% of our students in fourth grade already tested out.
That's awesome.
And
And so
so
the 15 skills are the basic skills
Yes.
needed
the
for,
basic reading skills for the phonics and reading. And so in our sixth grade, 80, we have over 80, it's over 85% of our sixth graders are in that. So because of this, we are in need of more comprehension and going into that next part, the comprehension and the vocab. Miss Allen is already helping me put together the vocab. It's a lot of work putting those cards, but we are in the process of doing that as well. But we do need some more comprehension.
Refresh my memory, were some of these things that we bought for reading 95, are they consumable?
So
Like a workbook, like a consumable
like a
workbook.
consumable workbook, no.
So we can use them.
You can use them over and over, yeah. And these ones, the comprehension is basically just gives us access to the online things and the maths. So we may need to print out some more maths as well, but this is a teacher's manual. And so we just needed some more because we're realizing that more and more grades are in need of them. And especially in these upper grades where we have more and more in our 5th and 6th, for example, I think 4 of our teachers actually during that luxury time are all doing comprehension or something like it. And so they're having to share binders and so we just need some more.
Good problem to have.
That's a great problem to have, because, you know, kids are exiting out of the intervention program. Was it a year? How long ago was it? I know I'm only here this 2 years. 2
It feels
years.
like forever, doesn't it?
But remember, Mr. Johnson came in, that's when we got the 95%. So really, we're just in the first trimester of the second year of that. And, you know, it's helping the kids have that basic foundation. We can come in and say, yeah, they have these skills. Does that always guarantee that, oh, they're gonna be perfect? No, but the skills are there, and with practice, at least we know from a teaching and pedagogy standpoint that we're really
So
helping
the
those
basics
kids.
at least are so then it comes.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions for Mr. Johnson? As he's here when it comes to the other things that would be a priority for the, you know, at least curriculum wise elementary that, you know, you might want to look into or anything?
So this whole thing costs.
So the writing by design, let me pull that one up.
The writing by design was 8,640, and that's K through 5th grade. Because our 6th grade actually already has it. But our 5th grade does not.
Can you move for a last one?
Yes. But we also have. Sure. So learning loss will be an option for this, but we will also still be getting the literacy funds from the state. And that's where we've done a bulk of our items with 95% was through literacy. And those funds will still be coming in. So we have options on which one to use.
So we just have this as a discussion item. Do you need anything from us to move forward?
I was
This was just more of FYI.
one of the things is like when we have new curriculums, we want to bring it to the attention of the board so we can ask the questions and you know, we can move on this, but I also didn't want to purchase it until Mr. Johnson has a chance to determine when his teachers will want it. And so I'll visit with him, and if we need to, on the ones above 5,000, we could even move to ratify later on. But at least, you know, if there's not any objections or anybody saying, hey, pump the brakes a little bit, let's look at that and revisit it. That's the stuff that would allow us to hold up that. But we could we just wanted to make sure that when we're presenting the board with the plan, we're not just going to go out there and buy something without a plan in place. So appreciate it.
We're gonna jump around. We'll go back to ISBA conference.
All right, that's you guys. Just wanted to say what you lead the way, Madam Chair.
Every year, every time I go, I get so much out of it. And I can imagine the organization that goes into that, because that's a lot of people to keep track of, and presenters and meals and all the things. But I was trying to decide and say, just pick one, and what would be my favorite one, and I don't know that I could pick. I really enjoyed the presentation that Chad Martin did on the an honest conversation about their school shooting, things they did well, things that they learned from, and steps that the sheriff's office is taking with their school. And so I think we might have a conversation with them.
You know, and some of the things with safety, of course, the details of our safety conversations will take place in executive session. But, you know, after that, I know that Tanis came and said, okay, where can we go with this? And we've already reached out to the safety department at the state, the ones that worked with Big B in their post study, and they'll be coming here. And just on that, we've been looking. We're needing some type of way for kids to, or even people in the community, to report incidences. And so one of the breakout sessions was with an app that the state has free of charge to all districts. And I'm in the process of getting that set up here in the district to have free of charge from the state. You're anonymous, and it's monitored. So if somebody comes in with something that's life-threatening or severe, somebody's going to monitor that. That's not us here at the district, but then they will call us as needed. And so if it's life-threatening, they'll call EMT 911. You know, if it's something lower on the thing, like there's a dog at the school or something, you know, hypothetical things like that. You know, those are types of things that wouldn't get brought up right away. But I have, you know, it's something that all of these resources are available. I think it was timely more done by ISBA. Not to cut you off, you can keep going on that, but I just wanted to piggyback on the safety part.
Well, and there was another class, low cost, no cost security improvements, and we invited him to come to our school and just do an analysis. But just a lot of takeaways. 7 strategies leaders must know, open meeting law, building board norms, tips for trustees when the whole world is watching. Right? It was great. So if you get the chance to go, I would highly recommend that you do that. I was curious as to Andrea's experience being a first year attendee.
It was good. It was a good reminder. I think especially, I think a lot of patrons don't often realize that we have to legally work together as a unit. And by coming to us individually, we can't solve the problems. It's not our role individually. And so it was a good reminder that way that we're there to listen. And that's all we
one
can
of
do.
5.
We are one of 5. And legally there are restrictions. What can, cannot. It was good training for that.
Okay, I went to a suicide prevention meeting, and that was quite informative. I got a information packet that they gave to us, and so I gave that to Carrie to give to her husband, since he's a counselor. And so hopefully that'll give him a little bit of information. I did go to the business session the last morning, and all the resolutions did pass. They all passed.
Even number 3.
Mhm.
You can ask, was there opposition to it?
Not much
The reason
opposition.
for it is what I'm looking
One of them actually was total 4 yes votes. So they all passed, and they all passed by quite a bit. So, and then the new executive board members, Jody Hendricks from St. Mary's. He is going to be the past president. He'll stay on 1 year to help with the executive board. The new president is Jason Knopf. He's from Melba. And then the new president-elect is what they call him, is Nancy Gregory from Boise, from the Boise School District. And then Star Olson from Dietrich is going to be the new vice president-elect on the executive board.
So how does that work? Just in case we have some aspiring board members. So does it go automatically from vice president to president to, or?
Yeah, it just, you move up 1 step.
So they're basically serving for about 4 or 5 years.
It's a 4-year commitment. You start with the vice president-elect, then you go to the president-elect, then you become the president, and then you become the past president, and you have to stay on for 1 more year. So it's a 4-year commitment.
That's a huge, that's a huge commitment. I think of you guys with the time that you put into our board, that hats off to those individuals that want to serve on the state board. And we didn't enter the lip sync competition because Tyson was unable to attend. So
Next year.
Practicing too.
Next year for sure. Mr. Williams, do you have any comments?
I had some.
go ahead, yeah.
Right.
So
Dropped in on.
So Netra, you attended virtually,
Yes,
so
yes.
you got different.
Wasn't easy either. One of them was called What Trustees Want, but won't tell you. And this is from trustees to the board or to the superintendent,
Say that one more time. What trustees want but don't tell me.
but don't tell, but just hope for. And that is
Huh.
that you live this job 24/7.
That's what you want me to do.
Well, that's kind of the way it works out.
Or is that what they're saying? Okay, I'll let you just keep talking.
They
So
did say 24/7. We see just a slice of it. We're not here. We don't know what goes on. So we want you to always keep us informed. And I think we can get that.
there's always improvement. I guess.
And then when we get, we've heard about things last meeting, when we get it again, we just need a little reminder that of what was told. So,
Mhm.
because we probably haven't brushed up on it, and we just need to make that happen. But I thought it was interesting, and we're still up there, you can go watch it. The 7 things they talked about: recognize our different experiences, provide great board materials, keep face-to-face simple, don't get too far, and prep. As a board, we should prep for questions. We should read what we're going to be talking about for us, so we know what we're talking about. And then you have to always presume that we have a positive intent. We should, if we have a big burning question, we should talk to you before. It's going to be. And then you, after the meeting, follow up if you don't think we've understood what the meeting is all about, or some part of the meeting, or something in the meeting that you think maybe one of us didn't quite get. You should follow up. Understood. And then invest in training so that we know. And then in the role of the school board and improving achievement, that was pretty good. Really. Stuff to write down. And then the one I really liked was connecting classrooms to careers through CTE. And if you get a chance, that's a good one to watch, because it just 74% of Idaho employers want to grow their business. 59% of these same businesses look outside of Idaho for their people because they don't think they can find it. And this talked about all the durable skills we teach kids, that they could do some of these jobs if we had some kind of a partnership. I know that's hard to clear out here, but it was, I really was impressed with it.
No, I know I mentioned this earlier, but I want to thank everybody for their time and dedication on the board. I know Tyson, you're busy. You're probably thinking, we're gonna get you to one of these, but But here's the thing is, I really feel that as I've had a chance to work with this board, a lot of these things that they're talking about, we've been doing, and because we've tried them and we're reaching out to be trained. We want to learn about how it really relates to us. You know, when you said assume that a question that comes out during this time isn't trying to catch one of us in a situation, and it goes back to the Brene Brown. You know what, we can still have a rumble, which is a discussion, but do it in a way that we have, you know, we believe that the other person has good intentions, that it's not trying to come and catch us. And you know, Andrea, your point about the misunderstanding of what your guys' role as elected officials, that doesn't mean that the people own you. You guys have to come in and is it like a republic, democratic republic is not that you tell the person how to vote, but I think sometimes that gets changed for like, hey, you have to vote the way I tell you because I voted for you. And that's not how that's not our country. You know, that's not the way the country is. It's you elect people to come in and explore the issues for you. And I think that you guys do a great job of doing that. So thank you. You know, I enjoyed my time over there. I think the highlight had to be the hockey game, sorry.
Oh, here we go.
Just kidding.
It was after hours, it was, you paid for it yourself.
But no, thank you. The ISBA is an advocate for education. They are, and even here's the thing that even with all the hard stuff that goes on with our legislature has been pro local control overall. There's a few factions in the legislature that wants to make rules that take away local control opportunities for us. But even ISBA distanced themselves from the National School Boards Association with some of the political things that were going out, especially when it comes to mandates and masks and vaccines. You know what, we are listening to our community, and our community, for the most part, you know, they feel like they can approach you guys, which I think is wonderful, and I think they can approach me, and so we'll just keep doing what we're doing. So
Trustee zone equalization.
all right, so in June, I brought this up where ISBA, going right back to ISBA, they offered a service. Every 10 years, there's a requirement from the state board that the census data be reanalyzed and compared to the current zones. And if needed, if the zones are out of balance, that there has to be a rezoning of those zones. When the ISBA reached out for that, they had a high price tag in the opinion of our board, where we could have paid them a certain price where they took care of all of this. That they just took the data, they went in, and then they would come back and say, hey, your zones are out of balance. What are you gonna do? And so what we had an email from ISBA saying, hey, you need to get this done because you're one of 9 districts that didn't pay us to do this. So Mrs. DeGraw and I we called the Census Bureau, went through a whole process, and we found out that the Census Bureau still doesn't have all of the data necessary to get this very easily. And eventually, after hours and hours of searching, Mrs. DeGraw was able to find one of the maps from the census data that pulls up what they call census blocks. Now, the census blocks, I don't know who made them or why or the reason. They don't always follow regular roads.
Arbitrary lines.
Arbitrary.
What we decided to call them.
They're just lines. Some of them follow roads, some of them don't. And there's a block of area that they count the population. Can you tap that? And so the census data is also only as good as the people who filled out the census. But that's neither here nor there because we don't have, we just have a state requirement that says every 10 years, look at your census data and make sure your zones are balanced. So Mrs. DeGraw and I went in and painstakingly mapped out the whole entire district on this map. Clicked on every single button to come up with how many patrons were identified in that census. Compared the census block to where they were in each current zone. Identified that from that last census that Montague grew, or at least filled out the census better than anybody else, and Hamer grew. And zone 4, where Tannis was at, actually went down, and so did zone 2, where Willie went down.
Did zone 3 go down, or did we just
Zone-
have to
zone-
adjust it?
Zone 3 stayed pretty similar, but
We had to adjust
had
to
to
balance
adjust.
out the numbers.
so with that, let me pull up the.
Those are our census blocks.
So this is an example of what we reached out. So instead of us, again, we could have paid ISB another couple $1,000s to have done this for us. But we reached out to our county office,
Mapping and zoning.
mapping and zoning, and they were able to help us do this. And so here's an example of, this is the one that's been at least proposed to change. Nothing is final. Again, I just want to verify to anybody out there watching, this is just the process of us looking at the numbers. We sent this into the state board already, and they sent it back and said, hey, you have some things that you need to change. And so it's kind of a messy process, and even those districts that paid to have this done are having to do the same process by themselves. And so really, we skipped the middleman already, and now we're down to the point where we have to make a decision. So looking at zone 1 used to take in this extra 10, 20 people right there. You see that little spot right there?
So that's 0, 11, and the 10 down there on the corner.
So if we had last year's zone, it would pull up that little triangle right there on 800. And so we felt that as we were looking at the legal descriptions, that we were looking for just the easiest way to balance numbers. I don't know who lives here, so we weren't trying to do a gerrymander thing to say, okay, let's go around this one here and get these people. And so that still allows our current board member, Andrea, you still live within the blue area. So that meets the 1 requirement. This here would, this proposal here allows it to be equal or just divided by
Balance.
1800 north, straight across to highway, what is that highway? 28,
Yeah.
which makes our legal descriptions straightforward and easy. Zone 3, previously was down here on 2600. But because zone 3 needed numbers and zone 1 needed to reduce numbers, this block right here, this 16 and 19, those blocks are proposed to go into zone 3. And so those living south of, is that 2700? South of 2700 would fall into zone 3. And then the other one is, we still need to make a change as the last census I was working on this at the conference, this little section right here, after they looked at it, they don't like it when we split census blocks. And so if you look at this, all of these white lines, those are census blocks. And out here is the lake, and why those census blocks go and find, like, I don't get it. There has to be some rhyme or reason. But you look at this block right here by 1800 or 1025. So this would be the road by the bank, right, coming up. We need to take this part right here and turn it into pink. Because they said you can't split this one with 8. There's that little part right there and that little part up there. They're saying you can't split those blocks, or they don't want us to split it. But we have to have a good enough reason why we split it. So that was the other area. Then with Hamer also grew, and we needed to balance that out. And then I think you're looking at this right here. Is that the most recent one that you handed out, Mr. DeGraw?
That's this map that you're looking at right
And
now.
our numbers are correct on that side, or did we update those?
That doesn't have the,
Those aren't accurate.
the new adjustments
No,
on it.
Those aren't the new adjustments. So the next part that we looked at was where, let me just pull up the different zones. From blocks. Here we go. So the one on your sheet is incorrect. This is what it will turn out to with the map that we have. That now all of the zones are within 3.87, which is actually closer than last time. Last time we had 2 of them that were 7% different. That does make zone 1 the largest on this example, but that by moving that 1800 over and gives zone 2 464. It gives zone 3 where you take up that lower 2700 459. Zone 4 would be 455, and Hamer would be 447. And so this really only comes into play twice every 10 years. This information. And so there's 2 parts of this. One is trying to come up with a map that we can have an easy legal description on where to put people that follow these maps, that follow that. And so in the previous one for Hamer, I guess you're gonna say, well, where did all the Hamer people go? It grew up this way with more people. And here's the example. The last one, was split straight from this line right here, straight down to Highway 33. And so they're telling us they don't like us to split census zones, but it was split last time. And I guess you can split a census zone if you have a reason and behind it. But as I looked at that last time, that would have put a former board member who was representing Hamer into Territon.
Right, it would have changed, it would have moved the zone 5 trustee into zone 4.
At that time,
And I
because it
think
was,
that's why they
that
justified.
may have
splitting
been, I
them
never did reach out, but it's something that, can they do that? Yeah, they can, but they just have to be able to justify, this is the reason why we're doing this. So this road right here is Place Road. And so Place Road would have been previously in Hamer, and everything to the right of that would have been in Hamer. And then it came up, this section here went up and came up this section here, and I can't remember where it
I think it took both of those 7s.
took those 7s
Both of those 7s were in Hamer.
and came back around, at least on the former one. So the easiest way for us to do a description would be to follow either a line or a road. And so that's where going to right here would be the end of Place Road, because you'd come up, you'd come across. David Dowling would be in the 39. We'd come up. Ashcrafts would be on the right-hand side, but anything on the left-hand side and south of 1900 would fall into zone 4. And that's really the biggest one when it comes to, there's one section right here where you can see that little blue area. I've got to figure that out with our mapping guy, because that's, I believe, where Bibees live. But that 7, I believe, is from that little spot right there. But that's a census zone. But why doesn't the census zone follow 1900? I don't know. That's the thing where it just doesn't make sense, where if we're trying to tell people, hey, where do I vote and when? Those that are south of 1900, this is where you go. The next thing that I have to work out, this map, they also didn't like that I split all of these census zones that are out here in the middle of the lake. So I'm looking at a different way of dividing it where they still stay, where it comes across the 1900, drops down this road here, and then goes straight out across, and then I'm splitting only 2 or 3 census zones. So, but there's feedback that, I'm presenting this to the board. What would you guys like to see done differently? What the goal really is we have to keep it within 10%. They don't want us to split census zones. And we need to make sure our legal descriptions can be defined on that.
So can you still meet that by keeping this little strip right here? Or is that how it was? Have you changed this map? Is it like it is right now, or is this?
This is the proposal that I
This
came
is
out
the
with,
proposal,
and
so
I was
that's
looking
what
at
this is.
numbers. I'm just looking at numbers.
So the numbers on the map indicate the number of individuals in that given area.
I don't know where this,
Yeah.
Responded to the census.
And this,
so these people that are moving in, they're making such a difference. All they're doing is replacing people that have moved out that were there. I don't see where they're looking. Such a amount of current climate here. Every house is full, but
yeah,
they took.
like I said, this is what's on the census data, and here's the tricky part, because I looked at that, Nedra. Well, do we come up Place Road and just keep everybody to the right side of Place Road in it, everybody on the left side, but you have this census zone right here where 10's at? It kind of, like, I don't know how we explain that without going to pay somebody $5,000
No, I don't want to do that, but
to come in and do that. It's,
so this is the way it was before.
Yeah.
So
it was right here. It was down this line,
it's
down this invisible line from there to there.
Mr. Williams, would you like me to go and pull what the numbers would have been if we didn't move zones?
Well, if you want to pull it up on yours.
I can pull it up right here. I'll just have to do a little bit of shifting.
I don't know.
Well, I guess here's the thing that anytime we move a zone, somebody might be upset because I'll say it, traditionally, people like ward boundaries. In this area, people say we should put these zones according to ward boundaries, because that's usually where a large group of community members get to meet together. But it's impossible for us to do that. It's impossible for us to and really the only proposal isn't going to say, hey, let's take those people away from the Hamer one and make them come down to the Territon one. The purpose of this is, at the end of the day, we have a balanced vote, like a balanced voice that is less than 10% on that voice. And this really is only for your elections. This has nothing to do with, like, those individuals would still vote all of their regular elections at their precinct. But we could look at that if we could pull, because what's going to happen is, right now we're off by 8. I know it looks like more, but there's 8 difference on that one. But if we come and we pull 27 and add 27, you're going to pull 27 away from zone 4 and add 27 to zone 5. That's going to make a big difference, and it's going to put us out of compliance. So you have that up there on the screen. This is a good one.
I just
What do you feel their concern would be, or your concern is on that? You know, that's a fair question, but we also have an open enrollment policy. We have a lot of people who live in Hamer that bring their elementary kids to Territon. And we also have a handful of people who live already in, even on the old zone, who live in zone 4 that take their kids to Hamer. So it's really not, that's the tricky thing, is it's not and that's a good fair point, because people would say, well, that's my Hamer representative. And it is, but you look at zone 4,
I don't want it to ruin.
I grew up in Hamer, or going to school in Hamer, where I live right where I'm at now, but I would be in zone 4.
I know, but if they come in new, Let's see, where do you go to school? You say you go in zone 4,
Oh, this isn't, we wouldn't use this as a school.
you don't.
Oh, so are you? So this is only for school board elections? This would not be used for,
Okay,
Oh, like votes,
yeah.
like
This
levy and
is,
bond votes.
oh, I'm glad that we're getting to this. This is not for school district or elementary boundaries.
okay.
That's completely different. Completely different. Yeah, that's a good, oh, I'm glad you made that clarification.
So this is just to have equal.
Representation
By the
for
school board
for
members.
school board trustee elections.
And fine, no argument.
No,
I just know how to bring that up without.
that's, I'm glad we were able to get there because that would be an issue if we were coming out and saying, all right, I'm changing the zones and now everybody south of this has to go to Hamer Elementary. We're gonna come in here and take these people.
Okay, that's not it.
That's gonna be completely separate. Okay. So where we're at right now then, I guess if there's any other discussions, is there any feedback that you'd like me to look at as I work with our county agent on that? I'm glad we got to the bottom of that.
Right, but these people are used to Hamer representatives and I know.
They will.
um,
Well, it's not finalized yet.
Okay,
So here's the thing is, I know that all 27 of those individuals are hovered around their computer right now watching us live.
how many are on right now? 1, 2.
Well, that's just Zoom. We have to go to YouTube to check that one. But really that's where the restrictions that we had are balance it out so that this number, oh, it looks like Carrie just did it. So if we would move those over,
People get used to
they do,
their school board person and
they do.
all of you, all the changes it makes for all of you, they get used to it.
So yeah, it looks like Mrs. DeGraw's working on this one right now. So that one does show that if we, do you see why we wanted to move where this is what it would look like if we took the last one. Is that right? From the last. So that would have made Hamer and Montague the big winners. If we kept the old zones with the new census numbers, that's what it would look like. And there's a 10% differentiation. You'd have to set zone 5 as I think it's actually gonna be off more if zone 5 is that would make it 19,
Right,
19% off.
right.
And zone 3 would be
Because you have
20.
to go by the biggest one.
That's why we were proposing what we're proposing with that. But I think we got to the solution of the discussion. There was a misunderstanding that this would also apply to elementary boundary zones. So those
no.
those that are in 4,
No, it
It
just
would be-
changes.
it just comes down to the
Yeah,
representation. But I'm glad you got that because if somebody at home or
Got that.
or in our audience was
It's a big audience.
was confused about that, they would definitely be like, hey, there's something fishy going on here. And that a lot of things that could be perceived on that, they're trying to move people out to get our population down. That's not it. It's all about just trying to meet the requirements for Board of Trustee elections. Good question. So any other thoughts, questions, comments on this process?
You're still working on it.
We're still working on it. This is our latest and greatest. So
When do they have to be completed?
ISBA wanted them turned in by last Friday to them so they can review them. But the state statute says it's 120 days after the census is completed, which puts us all the way through December. So our goal is to keep working. We're gonna meet the state statute. I was talking to another superintendent who also chose to do what we're doing. And he went and worked with their county. They're a smaller district, just like we are. But like I said, even the big districts that are looking at this, they've had to come back and they got feedback from ISBA, and they've had to make a few changes. So I think the hard part of getting the data is done, finding the data to be able to calculate where it's at. Now, the second part, which is still a challenge, is making sure that we get the map out and that our legal descriptions match up. And if that's the case.
We're working with our map guy at Jefferson County. And he's helping us make sure that our boundaries are in line with our descriptions. And so hopefully by next Friday, we can have a map to resubmit.
Yeah, we'll have time to get back still. They're not work over there, but we have time with the 120-day statute.
Well, and we've submitted it already, so we're within that statute. They've just come back and said we need to make some corrections.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So I only have a couple more. The high school math curriculum, I was hoping that Mr. Davis could be here or Mrs. Bell, which did not. The purpose of this one is just to start the discussion, and I think we'll push this one to next meeting, so we can have them come and look at that. But what they're looking at is replacing right now, one of our math offerings is done mostly online. It's called the Alex program. And Mrs. Bell, as she sat down with the math department, looking at ways to maybe make it more robust, is to offer a program called Math 123 is what she's looking at. Let's pull that up. And this will be more of problem solving, and I'll just read it. The course applies mathematics to real world problems, including problem solving strategies, includes statistics, probability, and personal finance. I know that's something that we've talked about in some of the other ones. It would be a 3-credit dual credit class offered through the College of CWI, College of Western Idaho. And so it's also something that will work with the CTE and careers, mechanics, welders, etc. So this is one that we just want to kind of get out there, saying we're looking at this, we're exploring it, and possibly by the next. Then there's the math book that's there. We'll be able to have her come in and show us a little bit more on that.
If you keep going down to the table of contents, I was so impressed with the things that are included in here because they're just real world practical things.
That's what we asked.
Yes. Yep.
That was exciting.
Seeing taxes, see, that's when
Right.
we never prepared for.
15 items I thought.
Credit cards or
People
other
need to
forms of
know.
credit right there, those are things that, and so that's something, as I've talked with hers, we've had those discussions. So this is just the process of, yes, we're moving in that direction, and
Really glad to know we're listening to.
yes,
It's great.
yes. Yep, I don't have the magic wand always be like, it's done,
This is fast.
this is part of the process. So that's just an information thing for the board. Mr. Packer was unable to make it today, so we're going to postpone that until next time. And then bond projects and discussion. Again, I just wanted to keep that on open book on all of that. I think I touched on it a little bit with Headwaters coming on as that. When we meet with them and sit down, that's when we really want to say, which projects do we want? And this would be the time to say, okay, we have the money, we have the construction manager. As I'm looking at the ones, I think our 2 marquee projects in this would be the auditorium and the old gymnasium. Those are, when I say marquee, those are the ones that we really need. They're the ones that need it the most at this point, followed probably by the roofs.
The roof on the PE building,
It will need to be replaced.
that's one of the main.
Because if not, we might be able to live by for 5 years, but I would hate to see, we're already past due on that one. I'd hate to start seeing in the main gym water marks coming down because we tried to stretch, the roof for 10 years, 5 years past it. So I think that's just something as you're listening to your patrons in your area, even the different areas, when we meet at those times, that's when you can just come out and say, like, let's make sure we get this, or share your ideas, because we're not looking at new things. And again, I'm gonna relate, I'm not talking about a gymnasium that we're gonna build. I'm not talking about things that weren't on the bond proposal. I'm talking about those key items on the bond proposal. Now we need to say, this is what those key items, we need to get those done.
So, Mr. Williams, concurrent with those projects is our safety upgrades that we're gonna be working on.
Yep.
But that won't be an open discussion most of the time within here. It'll be within executive session
Correct.
because it's regarding our safety procedures. But that is a top priority for the district.
Absolutely.
There's nothing else before we open for a motion to adjourn. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.